Meet the B8.5 Audi A4, often called the crown jewel of generations for modern Audis. It's a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4 that punches out about 220 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, acting like a comfy, no-drama daily driver, though ours comes with a few issues. Audi pairs their engine with an 8-speed Triptronic automatic transmission, which allows for smooth cornering and an amazing driving experience. Ours, unfortunately, arrived with a pretty bad front-end collision, so today we're going to take it apart and rebuild it to brand new. The headlights had snap brackets and wiring plugs, which made them difficult to remove, but after some force, we managed to pop them out. At the end of the video, I will give a cost breakdown on how much we paid for the car and all the money we spent on parts. While my friend worked to remove the headlights, I worked on getting the bumper off of the car. The front-end collision caused not only our bumper to crack, but our grille to get completely destroyed. Fortunately, the fog lights and even the fog light grills managed to stay intact. After pulling 2 awkward 10mm nuts and a single T30 screw on each side, the bumper slid right off and the fog light harness unplugged cleanly. We could now better see the damage done to the car. Our goal is to strip down the entire front end of the car, allowing us to replace all necessary parts. And to do so, our next step was to remove the hood. Pop the plastic caps, unplug the washer nozzle hose and the hood latch switch, disconnect the strut, then 2 13mm bolts per hinge, and the hood lifts away. The passenger fender was pushed up but still salvageable, so I pulled it to tweak the panel gap while my friend unbolted the crash bar. The bar was mangled, but it certainly saved us from more severe damage.
The A4 is now all stripped apart. We got the bumper off, headlights off, and now what we're gonna go ahead and do is work on this. The AC we could actually reuse. It was a little bent, managed to unbend it quite a bit, and the AC does work in the car. We did test that. We also have the intercooler down here, which seems perfectly good. We've got the charge pipes. Everything is great. Better condition than we initially expected. Radiator we are going to replace along with the radiator fans, just because we don't want to have to deal with that, and there is a coolant leak, so yeah, we gotta get that figured out. Engine is perfectly good. We'll of course do an oil change. We'll need a new crash bar. We're getting a new bumper. We're gonna have to get it painted, but pretty soon this car is going to be looking really good. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and drop a like, because we will have more rebuild content coming soon. And one day, guys, mark my words, this car right here will be an Audi R8. That's my dream car, and I'm gonna make it happen. Over here, what we're gonna do next is go ahead and fix this fender. As you can already see, I unbolted most of these bolts because this panel is a little popped out, as you can see, and I think we are gonna repaint it, mainly because of that right there. So yeah, we're gonna give this a new paint job, which is gonna be awesome. The other fender looks great, which is perfect. We're not gonna have to do too much with that. Really, this car is in better condition than we thought.
Next came the whole cooling system. Radiator support, radiator, fans, and the intercooler. Once these are out, the front end is ready for fresh parts. First up, the upper coolant hose. Pop the retaining clip, twist the hose to break the seal, and then pull. Easier said than done on a 10-year-old Audi. When putting this back together, I suspect we'll need to order a lot of new hardware, which may run our cost up high. Down low, the intercooler was still perfectly straight, so I plan to reuse it later. I loosened the 7mm clamps on both charge pipes, and the hoses slide right off.
Just got most of what we need to get done finished. See, they were just a T30 holding this radiator support bracket in to the fenders. And now it's all out. We do have to be careful with these lines over here, because I believe these are for like transmission fluid. So we're gonna be careful taking those off. We're not gonna take them off just yet. We got one of these coolant hoses off. We've got another one even a little bit lower down there to take off, which is gonna be a lot of fun, seeing as the mess we've already created. We took out the charge pipe for the intercooler because we're gonna reuse this intercooler. So, you know, we're gonna have to set that up with the new radiator. We're just a few steps away from it being ready and kind of prepared to put new parts in.
With the intercooler out of the way, I unplugged the fan harnesses and wrestled the lower radiator hose as well. After that, the radiator support was finally free, and ready to come off. Now, we could really see the front end of this car. There were these small white fibers throughout the car, which is what we think may have caused the front end accident, but have no clue what it actually is. With the radiator support out of the way, I went back to the passenger side fender. My friend pulled the wheel so I could reach the last two hidden T30 bolts inside the wheel arch. Once those screws were out, the fender lifted off. The accident had shoved the upper edge up a few millimeters, so I massaged the inner brackets and the sheet metal lip back into shape. Then I test fit the fender, bolted back in, panel gaps rechecked, and the alignment already looked a whole lot better.
All of the boxes have arrived. It has been about a week and a half since the last clip, or at least I think these are all the boxes. We don't have any hardware. We're gonna try to harvest the hardware off of these old pieces, but I mean, just take a look at like that. What are the odds we're gonna be able to get that off? And even if we do, what are the odds it's gonna be useful? So chances are I'm gonna have to make another order pretty soon, but we do need all the parts in so we can figure out what hardware we need. Let's go ahead, let's unbox these. We just got everything unpackaged. We got the crash bar, we got the radiator with the radiator support. Over here we have the radiator fans. We've got two headlights. We've got headlight brackets too. What we need for an oil change, which, you know, we'll definitely do. We don't know how long this car has been sitting for. Right here, I actually have oil pressure switches or sensors. I low-key forgot what they're called, but these are hopefully gonna fix the low oil pressure light we get on the car. I think it's probably just a bad sensor, especially because we did have a front end collision. So hopefully when we replace those, it'll be all good. These are all the like functional parts, I guess you could say. The appearance parts like the hood and bumper and the grille too. We'll get that sorted out, but I wanted to start with these because this is all stuff we can try to get started on. Like I said, hardware is probably going to be missing, so that's something I'm going to look out for.
With our new boost solenoid finally in hand, we were ready to swap out the old one. The install was simple: 3 vacuum lines, 1 electric connector, and a few clamps to secure it. Once everything was in place, my friend bolted it down, and just like that, the new solenoid was installed. Right after that, we hit an unexpected issue. Our AC pressure sensor had snapped completely off. Fortunately, a quick online order and a store run landed us a new sensor the same day. The old connector had broken off and was actually stuck in the harness. After some prying, we finally managed to get it out. The new sensor simply threaded in by hand. With that out of the way, we could finally start putting the front end back together. First up was the radiator and fan assembly. We dropped it into the radiator support, seating the lower rubber bushings and the upper rubber bushings. After that, we moved on to reconnecting the transmission cooler lines into the radiator ports. Next came the AC condenser, which easily clipped into place at the very front of the stack. Finally, we reinstalled the intercooler. It uses 1 clip on each lower side, another at the top left, and a single screw at the top right. Once secured, we reattached the charge pipes and tightened the 10mm clamps. With everything reassembled and tightened down, it was time for the moment of truth, our first startup. This was it. The moment that would either validate weeks of work or send it all up in smoke. My first full rebuild, hours of wrenching, hundreds of photos, thousands in parts, and now all we could do was turn the key and hope. And just like that, it went. Smooth and clean. No warning lights, no leaks. And the engine sounded strong. And for the first time since this car was wrecked, it was fully alive again.
First startup of the A4 post rebuild went perfectly. I don't think we could have asked for anything better. Nothing was leaking, which is fantastic. I'm amazed we're using these components. Everything worked well. Of course, we did have that unexpected issue with this, but a quick 30-minute drive to the store, and that's all good too. We don't have any coolant. It all drained when we pulled off the hoses, so I am gonna go get more coolant. And next time we come back, guys, we are gonna fill up coolant. I'm gonna put the crash bar back on. We got the crash bar supports there, and then the crash bar itself. Do an oil change, much needed. And then we're gonna take it for a test drive. We're gonna go ahead, let's skip until when I get the coolant, I get everything back, and we're ready to go. Of course, we got the headlights we have to do still, the hood, which is there, we got the bumper in the other room. We are gonna get them painted too. We are very close to finishing this rebuild, and all of the fundamental components are done, or sorry, I should say mechanical components. Really, all that's left is some appearance stuff and, well, I guess some minor fundamental stuff like the crash bar. But guys, we're nearly there.
The next day, I got right to work installing the crash bar supports. Each side took 3 massive 16mm bolts, followed by a small 10mm bolt and a washer to lock them in place. With the supports mounted in, it was time to fit the crash bar itself. It didn't go in easy. We had to muscle it a bit, but eventually it slid into place. 2 long 10mm bolts on each side and a washer at the bottom secured it down tight. With that bolted up, the front end was finally starting to look like a real car again.
Our front end is fully back together. It is looking fantastic. The next thing we are going to quickly do is an oil change because we don't know how long it's been sitting for. Got a new oil filter and brand new oil over there as well. After that, I've got some coolant we're gonna put in. Once we put the coolant in, we can actually turn the car on and let it idle for a while. We're gonna use a code reader in OBD11, try to check if anything's wrong with the car. Of course, we're probably gonna get thrown some codes for the fact that, well, we don't have headlight, fog lights plugged in, anything like that. Some of this side wiring here. I didn't even know that this car had washers for the headlights. I didn't know that. Learn something new. We're gonna get this all sorted out. We'll do the headlights after, but it should look pretty good once this is all done.
An oil change is simple enough. The drain plug on this car is extremely easy to access right under the front. Once the oil was out, we swapped the filter, reinstalled the plug, and poured in fresh oil. Coolant was next. Filling it up is usually straightforward, but of course, nothing ever goes that smooth. While topping off the system, we had a leak. Something was missing. The 8mm quick connect fitting that links the overflow hose to the radiator. We're pretty sure it got tossed out with the old radiator, which unfortunately meant we didn't have one. After striking out at every local auto parts store, we had no choice. This was gonna have to be an online order and another delay. While we waited for our final part to arrive, I got to work transferring old hardware over to the new headlight brackets. Mounting the lower plates was simple. It was just 230 bolts per bracket. The real challenge came when it was time to remove the headlight washer nozzles. 3 tight clips held them in place, and it took some careful prying to pop each one loose without damaging the nozzle. After that, we swapped over a small electrical connector, and just like that, the new brackets were ready to mount to the radiator support. But then, we hit another unexpected problem. Our car had no refrigerant. Refrigerant is what makes your air conditioning work. Without it, you're not getting any cold air. But it's not just about comfort. A running AC system helps regulate engine bay heat and keeps pressure stable in the compressor. On the BA.5 Audi A4, the AC system uses R134A refrigerant, and here's how it works. The compressor starts by drawing in low pressure gas and compressing it, raising both the pressure and the temperature. From there, the refrigerant flows into the condenser, which sits right at the front of the radiator support. This part is key. It cools the hot, high-pressure gas, turning it into a liquid as it releases heat to the outside air. Next, it passes through the receiver, which acts like a filter and storage tank. It removes moisture and debris and stores the clean, liquid refrigerant. From there, it moves into the expansion valve, which regulates how much refrigerant flows into the evaporator. The evaporator, tucked behind the dash, is where the magic really happens. The liquid refrigerant evaporates back into a gas, absorbing heat from the cabin air and leaving you with a cool, dry air blowing from the vents. And just like that, the cycle repeats. But here's the catch. You can't just throw refrigerant into the system like coolant or oil. Recharging refrigerant requires specialized equipment. It has to be vacuum tested for leaks and then recharged with the exact amount specified by Audi. Since Copart and most salvage yards drain refrigerant for environmental safety, it wasn't surprising our system was bone dry, but it meant yet another step before this car would be road ready. While I waited for my friend to help recharge the refrigerant, I got to work reinstalling the headlights, starting with the passenger side bracket. Once it was aligned, I secured it with 2 T30 bolts, and then the headlight slid right into place. I clipped in the electrical connector, bolted it down to the bracket, and just like that, passenger headlight was locked in. Then it was onto the driver's side. Same process at first, this one needed a little extra attention.
This right here is the new headlight that we ordered. Now, what I didn't know is that it actually came with a bunch of these brackets. What I need to do is detach all of the stuff we don't need, like the old wiring harness for the headlight itself. We got this little switch here, which I'm not too sure what this is for. Maybe something for the headlight washer nozzle. Got to take all these bolts out and just kind of strip the headlight down, but that also means I'm gonna have all this hardware to use, which is awesome because we are missing some hardware. Like we have both of these bolts here, which are gonna be very useful. And there we go, just like that. The brackets are now all off. We do have another switch here, but we don't need that. We already have a new one, so I think this is now all gonna go to the trash.
Once the old brackets were off, I slid the headlight in with the new hardware and locked it down again. For the first time since the crash, the front end actually looked like a complete car again. With the headlights done, I turned to something long overdue, a deep engine bay cleaning. I got into every nook and cranny I could, wiping down grime and bringing back that clean OEM look. And after some time, it really came together.
The front end is finally starting to look like a real car. Now that we have both headlights in and hopefully they'll work, I'm about to test them in a second. This car is starting to actually finally look like a car. Like, I can't wait until we clean the outside of this car too, which is probably gonna be soon. I mean, gonna get the bumper and the hood painted, get that put on. One thing I'm not too sure of, I'll figure it out, but whatever this is, there's one on each side. And then I believe this is gonna be our fog light connector, which of course we'll put on the new bumper once we have that all ready. So yeah, same thing over here. Those are the two connectors we are missing. Do have these headlight washers in? They'll work or not. They barely work on my car, so I'm not too sure, but we still don't have this little connector that's gonna go right there to allow this to go into the radiator. This is our coolant overflow line. The battery probably won't work without the charger. Do need to get the car turned on and let it run for a little bit so that hopefully the alternator can charge the battery itself and it will be able to run under its own, but that's not something we can do right just yet. So I'm gonna try to put it in electrical mode. I think it will work unless I connect the, yeah. All right, let's connect the negative. There we go. Car now has power. We could hear that. Hopefully we don't get any leaks. I mean, we're just turning it on electrical mode. Let's just see how this goes. There we are. We're now in electrical mode, and I can actually already see both of the headlights. Look at that. Perfect. The headlights are working. We got one there. We got one there. For some reason, this one seems a little like blue. I don't know if the camera is going to pick up on that, but it does look a little bluish. Let's go ahead. Let's turn on the DRLs. Okay, this side does look a little yellow compared to this side, which is good. This headlight is good. I don't have any problems with that. This one, as you can obviously tell, now this happens when I think there's a lot of light exposed to the headlight, and it kind of happens over time, but this is very bad, and the seller I bought this from did not notify me that it would be like this, so I think we're gonna try to go ahead and get this returned, and we're gonna have to order a new headlight, which really does suck, but we really do want this car to be in best shape as we can, and this headlight is not a good sign of that.
Our driver's side headlight had a faded yellow daytime running light when it's supposed to be a bright clean white. This usually happens due to heat damage, UV exposure, or aging internal LEDs. Over time, the phosphor coating inside the LED can degrade, which causes the light to shift from a white to a yellow. Fortunately, the seller accepted my refund request, so now we're ordering a new and hopefully better headlight that will match the passenger side and keep this build looking as clean as possible. In the meantime, I wanted to get rid of any faults.
59 faults. Oh my goodness. Well, what I'm hoping is that majority of these faults are going to be from pre-crash, and now that we have fixed and replaced so much, we're going to clear those and they won't come back. But I'm going to go through and look at all the faults and see what we have. I'm clearing the faults right now. We're going to rescan it and we're going to see how many of these faults actually come back. We can already see it just went through the engine and no faults were found, which is very good. That means we don't have any engine faults. How many are we gonna have in the end? 4 faults. Look at that. That is perfect. Oh, 5. All right, let's go figure out what these are, because these are the actual faults and they stayed after we did a clear. We have a refrigerant fault, which perfectly makes sense. We have not refilled the refrigerant just yet. We are going to try and do that soon. Central electronics, we have a fault here. Let's see what this is. Garage door opener. Okay, that also makes sense. I don't know if I showed you guys what the garage door opener is. I will in a second. Telephone? Are we for real? Telephone? What could this even be? What is it? Telephone microphone. What? Alright, well, I couldn't tell you guys what that is, but interesting. So there we go. Those are all of our faults, and none of them are major, which is amazing. We're very happy that none of them are major. We don't have any engine faults, right? Yes, awesome. Okay. The garage control, or what is supposed to allow like your garage doors to open from the car, is this right here. And I knew that this was going to be a problem because it had a bunch of water in it. or water, something. I'm not too sure what it was, but when we first had this car, this was damaged and I could tell. So maybe I can take these 4 screws off. They're tiny Torx by the seams of it, and get a look at the inside of this unit. The other thing is we could sell it and just disclose that the garage door opener is not gonna work. My own Audi, I have never used that in my life. Oh man, look at that. Oil change due since 5,500 miles. Inspection due since 21,000. Oh my goodness. Well, we just did an oil change. The car doesn't know that though. So I'm gonna have to quickly code that and say that we did a service so that that goes away, because we don't want any buyers seeing that. We did do the service though. It's not like I'm just getting rid of it. Did actually do an oil change. Here we go. We can go ahead and change this value and we can reset the oil service, and done. And there we go. Next oil change in 1,000 miles or 365 days.
The coolant overflow line finally came in, so I was able to press it into the radiator, lock down the metal clip, top off the coolant, and finally turn the car on. At first, it seemed to run fine, but then the engine started to sputter and die out. Something was definitely off. We turned the car off and scanned for codes. That's when I got the P086A code, which means ECM/PCM power relay de-energized performance too early. This code typically means that the engine control module or the powertrain control module isn't getting stable power during shutdown or startup. It can happen if the power relay, sometimes called the 645 relay, is failing, or there's an interruption in the circuit that feeds it. Basically, the car's computer is losing power when it shouldn't be, which can cause all kinds of issues during startup. So we're going to replace the 645 relay fuse next, and if all goes well, that should clear the code and bring the system back to life.
Unfortunately, it seems like the car is misfiring. So what we're going to go ahead and do, this car is 93,000 miles. So we are going to replace the coil packs and then the spark plugs as well. That is a regular service maintenance that has to be done on these cars. So we're going to do that, and hopefully that is the end of the issue. We really do hope that's all it is, because these are very simple, very easy to reach, and it's not too crazy expensive to do. So we're going to do that first. Then we're going to start the car up and see how it runs. The alternator seems like it's struggling to charge the battery, but maybe that's just because we haven't actually had it on for a long time. We only ran it for about a minute before we were like, okay, this is getting bad. It sounded not good. We didn't want to keep running the car, so we went ahead and shut it off. Once we get both of those fixed, the car will be running and it will be all good again. We are still waiting for a new headlight to come in. So this is a delay, but not really a massive delay as long as it is this simple as a fix. We really hope this doesn't become a bigger issue, because we don't want to go, too deep to the point where we are in the red with this car. We are getting pretty close. We do want to make some profit. I mean, that was the goal, but this was more of a trial car. Hopefully our next car, we want to get a newer, better car, one that is like 2020 and up. So we don't have to deal with all these rusted bolts and everything like that, having to replace stuff because it's high mileage. Hopefully all that will not be a problem in the next car.
The new coil packs and spark plugs had finally arrived. To start, I had to remove the ignition wiring rail. A few bolts and a harness of wires held it down. Once freed, I carefully pried off each of the 4 coil packs. The back 2 were especially stubborn, but eventually they gave in. With the coil packs out, I used a 5/8 spark plug socket to loosen the old plugs, but unfortunately, they wouldn't lift out of the socket alone. A magnetic pickup tool made quick work of that problem. I gently threaded in the new spark plugs by hand to avoid cross-threading, and then gave each a snug 1/4 turn to torque them down properly. The new coil packs went in next. I aligned each connector to its corresponding cylinder, pressed them down firmly, and bolted the rail back into place. Just like that, we'd finished a full ignition service on the A4. Now that the ignition service was out of the way, it was time to fix the headlights. The old driver's side headlight with its faded yellow DRL had to go. I unbolted it, unplugged the harness, and swapped it for a brand new unit. With everything locked into place, it was finally time to turn the car on and see if this new headlight was as clean as it looked.
Moment of truth, the new headlight is in. So are the new coil packs and spark plugs. I am just now realizing I think I'm gonna have to adjust the fitment of this headlight, because there's a gap here, but that's okay. That's simple enough. The headlight's like 3 bolts. What we need to do right now is I'm gonna start with just electrical mode so we can check the headlight out. Okay, there's that. Perfect. Let's take a look at the DRL first. That's what I have it on. Perfect. Look at that. That is a amazing color. Pure white. Whiter than this one. This one is it's getting a little faded on that inside, but I don't think it's a big deal. And let's also check the headlight bulb. Go ahead, turn this on auto, and there we go. Those are on. You can see they're now the same color. Looks like they're different levels, which I can literally just adjust the level with that right there with a flathead. Literally right here. Let's grab this flathead, put this in here like so, and then turn it, and it should go higher. There we go. It's slowly happening, and right about there looks to be about the same on both sides. So there we go. Perfect. Headlights are now level. Quick adjustment. Perfect. The side marker light works. Headlight works great. Finally, okay. Something going good on the car. We got the headlights figured out.
With the headlights finally sorted, it was time to move on to something completely new for us: painting. This would be our first time ever painting a car part, so we wanted to do it right. We knew going in that priming is one of, if not the most important steps in getting a clean finish. We started by sanding down the entire hood, going both horizontally and vertically to make sure we covered every inch. Once it was smooth, we laid down our first coat of primer, keeping our distance and trying to stay consistent, not too thick and not too light, just enough to build even coverage without any runs. After letting it dry overnight, we sanded it again, hit it with another coat of primer, and repeated the process until the surface felt glassy smooth. Then came the exciting part: paint. Using the VIN, we got the exact factory paint code, mixed at our local shop so it would match the original Ibis white perfectly, or so we thought. We sprayed layer after layer, taking our time between coats, and once we were happy with the coverage, we finished it off with a few layers of clear coat. And honestly, it looked incredible. Maybe a little too incredible. Sitting next to the 11-year-old OEM paint, it didn't match as well as we'd hoped. The new paint was bright and crisp, while the old paint had slightly yellowed and dulled over time, something that happens to white cars as UV exposure oxidizes the clear coat and changes the pigment tone. We repeated the same process for the bumper, and by the end, both pieces looked brand new. That's because they were. I finished it off by installing the new grille, fog lights, and fog light grills from the original bumper. For a moment, it felt like we were finally at the finish line, but that's when everything took a turn. This is the risk you take when buying a crash damaged car. You never truly know how deep the damage goes. You can guess, you can inspect, but you'll never really know until you start tearing into it. The A4 started developing a horrible misfire, all 4 cylinders. At first, I was hopeful it was something simple, a relay fuse, but when that didn't fix it, I swapped the coils and plugs. Still, nothing. I started losing hope. I spent hours on Audi forums, watching videos, trying to piece together what could cause a full engine misfire like this. I'm not a certified mechanic, I don't have a degree. What I have is YouTube, my friends, and a bit of common sense. And honestly, that's what this project was all about, learning. So, I kept going. One post mentioned carbon buildup causing rough idles and sputtering, and that sounded exactly like my issue. Cold starts were fine, but once the idle dropped, it would shake, sputter, and pop. Keep the RPMs up, and it ran totally smooth. That gave me hope. I pulled the intake manifold off to get access to the intake valves, and that's when I saw it. Thick black carbon buildup caked on the ports. I used seafoam spray to break it down, making sure each cylinder I worked on had the valves closed, and gently scraped the buildup away with a flathead screwdriver. The difference was night and day, from black encrusted to clean, shiny aluminum. I put it all back together, hoping this would finally be the fix. But it wasn't. At this point, I was running out of ideas. I ran codes and saw a code that talks about my high pressure fuel sensor, and when I checked it out, the connector was completely broken. Don't even know how that happened. I replaced it, but still, nothing. I replaced the PCV valve next, thinking that was it. Again, no luck. I fell down a rabbit hole of forums and troubleshooting posts, chasing every new clue that sounded remotely like my symptoms. Then finally, a real lead. I pulled the spark plugs to check if they'd gone foul already, and what I saw didn't make any sense. There was oil on the threads of all 4 plugs, and the tips, which were brand new, were already black and burnt. That's when it clicked. Oil was leaking into the spark plug wells, shorting the ignition and causing the misfires. On this engine, that usually means one thing: a bad valve cover seal. Now, the 2.0T in the Audi came in 2 versions. One with a rubber valve cover gasket, and the other, like mine, sealed from factory using RTV sealant instead of a gasket. And over time, the sealant hardens, cracks, and starts leaking oil. It made perfect sense. All 4 cylinders were misfiring, all 4 plugs had oil, and all 4 spark plug tubes are sealed by the same layer of RTV. So that was it. I finally found my problem. All I had to do was clean the plugs, reseal the valve cover, and hopefully, once and for all, fix the misfire. But before we could lay down any sealing, we noticed something off. Our passenger side camshaft was sitting noticeably higher, almost tilted upward toward the firewall, and that shouldn't happen. To get a better look, we pulled off the high pressure fuel pump and the vacuum pump, and that's when it became obvious. Somehow, the camshaft wasn't fully seated in its saddle. The most likely cause? During the crash or during our teardown, the cam must have lifted slightly when the valve cover was first removed. These cams rely on even downward force from the valve cover to stay seated, and without it, they can float or tilt. Either way, the valve cover couldn't sit down properly unless the cam was pushed back into its correct position. And after an hour of research, digging through every forum I could find, I finally stumbled upon a post on Audi World from a user named Jimmy Green, describing the exact same problem. And his solution, while definitely not the official Audi technician method, was surprisingly clever. Use the valve cover bolts to press the camshaft back down into position, evenly and a little bit at a time. So that's what we did. First, we laid a thin, even bead of sealant across the valve cover, making sure to circle the spark plug wells as well. And then we carefully positioned the valve cover over the floating cam, even though it was sitting way up and didn't look like it would ever line up. And then came the sketchiest part of probably this entire rebuild. We threaded in every bolt finger tight, and then took turns tightening them just a quarter turn at a time, top to bottom, side to side, keeping pressure perfectly even so nothing cracked. Painfully slow, but somehow, unbelievably, it worked. The cam slowly pressed back into place, and the valve cover finally sat down perfectly. Once every bolt was hand tight, we torqued them to spec, and a new gasket went onto the HPFP, another onto the vacuum pump, and after a bit of awkward alignment, all 3 vacuum pump bolts slid in exactly as they should. From there, it was simple. Reinstall the high pressure fuel pump, the PCV, the coils, the spark plugs, and every wire and hose we had taken off. And now, it was finally time to start the car again, and pray that all of this work paid off. This is the part no one shows you, the part where you start wondering if any of this was worth it. Even after all of these steps, the sealant, the cam issue, the new PCV, coils, spark plugs, the problem was still exactly the same. And honestly, I started questioning everything. This is the sad reality of buying crash damaged cars. There's always that moment where you think maybe you bit off more than you can chew. I started wondering if I should just cut my losses, scrap the project, and switch to flipping easy Facebook Marketplace cars. Quick flips, fast money, and constant content. But this car, this project, it felt personal. My friend and his family believed in me, and every time the car kept dying, it felt like I was the one failing, not the car. I even caught myself doing things that didn't make sense, trying fixes that I should have known weren't the cause. I mean, for example, I convinced myself leaking oil on the spark plug threads might have been the problem, but oil never got onto the spark plug tips themselves, and that alone should have told me the valve cover was not the issue. But still, I kept trying. And now, after tearing this engine apart multiple times, here's where the car stands. The spark plug tips never come out oily. They're always only fouled. They foul insanely fast, and even when I clean them moments before. A rough idle, there's popping at low RPM, and it stalls. There's misfires across all cylinders, and there's no obvious mechanical damage. And all of this points to one thing. Somewhere, there's still a vacuum leak. When the engine sees unmeasured air, it compensates by dumping extra fuel, which could be why the spark plugs are getting fouled almost instantly and causes the exact symptoms we are experiencing. And at this point, I'm putting this video out before finishing the car because I need the community's help. someone who's been through this, someone who knows this engine better than I do. I'm unbelievably grateful for everyone who has watched this video. I've learned more from this one car than from anything I've ever worked on in my life. And whether this Audi ends up fixed or whether I switch to flipping Facebook cars for a while, I'm not going to be stopping. And thank you guys so much for watching until the end. Please drop a comment with your thoughts. I will be reading every single one. And I will see you in the next one.